Now for our story. On a recent visit to her uncle, David Bowman, at the Wakefield Bank, Kitt Meade had encountered Aunt Mary, had learned of Lisa Fenner's visit to the Lane farm, learned that Mrs. Fenner had admitted knowing Kitt. Later, in a panic, Kitt asked herself what this might mean. Had Aunt Mary looked at her strangely? Had Lisa told the whole story of the baby's true parenthood? And was she to be confronted suddenly with the accusation of having claimed Lisa's child as her own? She had to find out. And so today, Kitt drove down to the square, parked a green roadster at a vantage point, and waited for the arrival of Aunt Mary's pickup truck, which was sure to be in today to make a delivery. Shortly after she arrived, the truck pulled up. Aunt Mary got out and went in one direction, while Peggy Douglas, her niece, headed for the Brown Palace Hotel. Kitt followed. Now she overtakes Peggy, going through the swinging doors into the lobby.
Well, Peggy, this is a nice surprise.
Oh, hello, Kitt.
How have you been, Peggy? It's been quite a while since I saw you.
I've been very well, thank you.
I was just going through to the coffee shop for a bite of lunch. Won't you join me?
I have a lunch date with Nicholas. In fact, I'm here now to meet him.
Oh, I see. Well, that's too bad. Well, since you apparently have to wait for him, I think I'll sit here a minute, too. I'm allergic to eating alone. Maybe someone I know will come by. That is, if you don't object to my company.
After all, Kitt, it's a free country.
A free country. So it is. By the way, Peggy, that reminds me. I suppose you've heard the news.
News? I don't know which news you mean.
Well, I should think it would be the first thing you'd think of. I mean about the divorce.
Oh. Yes, Bill told us about it the other night.
I thought he would. I didn't expect he'd lose much time in giving you the glad tidings.
Bill and Aunt Mary are very good friends. You know she's interested in his welfare.
But, of course, you're not.
That's not so, of course. I'm naturally concerned about what happens to Bill, too. He's a friend of mine.
Just a friend?
You still insist on misunderstanding the situation between Bill and me, don't you?
Well, it's not a question of misunderstanding. It's just a case of knowing what goes on beneath the surface of things.
Whatever you mean by that.
Simply that the way people act isn't always the way they feel.
That may be so, but it still doesn't prove anything. Anyone can jump at conclusions. But I think you take too much for granted, Kitt.
Do you?
I certainly do. You've made up your mind to certain things about Bill and me, and nothing seems to make any difference to you. You've made these accusations before. Frankly, Kitt, I'm getting very fed up with it.
Well, you're quite a little firebrand, Peggy. It becomes you, too.
You can't throw me off by making fun of me.
Oh, but I'm not making fun of you. I'm really quite impressed. And you mustn't think I don't realize that you and Bill are both made of the very noblest stuff. I'm sure you imagine your feelings toward each other are entirely honorable. In fact, you've probably convinced yourselves that you're just good pals. Now, that's all very fine. But you see, you haven't convinced me. I think you're still crazy about him.
Why do you insist on going around insulting people, making insinuations?
You consider it an insult for me to believe you're still in love with Bill?
Yes, I do, under the circumstances. Besides, you know very well if you and Bill had been happily married, he wouldn't have needed to come to Aunt Mary or to me for understanding. It's not my fault your marriage wasn't satisfactory.
I'm not so sure about that. There's such a thing as being haunted by the ghost of the past. And you make quite an active little ghost, Peggy. You were with us all the time.
That isn't my fault, even if it's true. I've got my own life to live, and I'm living it. Nicholas and I...
Yes? What about Nicholas and you? You know, it's odd you haven't been married by this time. I understood the wedding was all set. And then something happened, didn't it? Somebody changed his mind.
There's no reason why I should sit here and let you analyze what I do or don't do, Kitt.
All right, Peggy. I'll be generous. Let's analyze what I've done. I made the mistake of marrying Bill. I'm perfectly willing to admit I made a mistake.
It took you an awfully long time to realize it seems to me.
There were reasons why I hesitated to admit defeat. For one thing, the baby. I felt we owed it to the child to try and make a go of it.
That sounds strange coming from you, Kitt.
What do you mean by that? What's strange about it?
Why, Just that I've never pictured you as the maternal type. And from everything I've heard...
Whatever you heard was gossip. This town. Every time you turn around... But I suppose it's only natural. People haven't anything better to do than talk about each other.
Well, kid, if you don't like being gossiped about, you're probably going to be pretty uncomfortable in the next few months.
What makes you think I'll be uncomfortable? I've nothing on my conscience.
I didn't say you had. All I meant was that in every divorce, naturally...
Oh, the divorce again.
That's what we were talking about, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, of course.
However, it's not my favorite topic of conversation.
Well, then, let's change the subject, shall we?
Look, Kit, please don't sit here on my account. Nicholas will be down any minute, and...
Oh, that's considerate of you, Peggy, but I happen to feel like making small talk. So, unless you want to get up and walk away, I'm afraid you're trapped.
Very well. Though it's hard to think of any interest we could have in common.
Oh, I don't know. Let me think. Oh, how about this house guest Aunt Mary mentioned? Some girl who's been visiting you.
Oh, you mean Lisa Fenner?
Yes. An out-of-town visitor always makes exciting conversation.
Did Aunt Mary tell you about Lisa?
She mentioned her. Said she'd been staying with you.
Oh.
I was interested. The name sounded so familiar. And then I remembered that I'd met her once. Oh, some time ago.
I see. Well, you probably know as much about her as we do, then. She didn't talk about herself very much.
Well, that's too bad. I imagine she'd had quite an interesting life.
I guess she has had, being a dancer. However, she seemed to be quite unhappy about something.
Well, what a shame. It's odd she didn't confide in you, or Aunt Mary.
Well, Kit, maybe I'm an exception to your rule about small-town gossips. But I don't believe in pressing people to talk about themselves unless they want to.
Well, that's very sensitive of you, Peggy. But Aunt Mary's the very person most people would choose to tell their troubles to.
Yes, that's true. Aunt Mary is that kind of a person. Well, maybe Lisa did tell her what was the matter, for all I know. But Aunt Mary wouldn't tell me, unless there was something I could do to help. She's very good at keeping people's secrets, when it's the best thing to do.
And when it isn't?
Naturally, if Aunt Mary knew something that it would be better to tell, something that would solve everybody's problems, she'd do something about it.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure she would.
Anyway, I don't know where all this is leading us.
Perhaps I'm only interested because it's nice to know other people have troubles, too. Maybe it's the old misery likes company routine.
You don't look very miserable to me, Kit. Somehow I've an idea you'll manage to take care of yourself very nicely.
You think so? Well, Peggy, I only hope you're right. Oh, isn't that Mr. Dorn coming out of the elevator?
Oh, yes, it is.
Well, I think I'll run along. Nicholas Dorn and I can manage to worry along very well without each other. And thanks for a very charming and very interesting conversation.
Kit hurried through the lobby and out to the street. She wanted to think back over her conversation with Peggy and decide just what it had revealed. It had brought Kit some relief because Peggy Douglas wasn't capable of hiding her feelings completely. If she'd known anything about the baby, if Lisa had told her the truth, it would surely have been apparent in what Peggy said. But Kit would not have felt so easy if she'd known where Lisa Fenner was now, in Chicago, working with Aunt Mary's good friend, Dell Shipley. Dell, who had promised Aunt Mary to keep track of this unhappy young woman, try to learn what's troubling her. Tonight, Lily Devon and Lisa Fenner, the young woman Aunt Mary asked Dell Shipley to befriend, are chatting as they get into their costumes for the first floor show. Lisa had opened the evening before to a very lukewarm response. In fact, she was so discouraged at her reception that if Lily hadn't used all her powers of persuasion, Lisa would have walked out after that first performance. But Lily convinced her to give it another try. Now, as Lily slips into a rather scant costume, she says,
I like that yellow outfit you're wearing, Lisa. It's even prettier than the one you wore last night.
I'm glad you like it. I thought it might change my luck if I wore a different gown.
Don't worry about changing your luck. You're going to go out there tonight and wow 'em. I feel it in my bones.
I only wish I were as sure as you seem to be.
I've got a lot of faith in my hunches. I could tell you time after time when I've hit it right on the nose.
Really?
Yeah. I'll never forget once when I was down and out. Didn't have a bean. I was in San Francisco.
Oh, I didn't know you'd ever been out on the coast.
Sure. I've been all over the United States.
I love that in San Francisco, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, this place, it was down near Fisherman's Wharf. The Black Kettle, it was called.
Oh, yes, I know that place, but I never worked there.
It's pretty fancy, you know. They put on a good show. And getting an interview was worse than trying to see Earl Carroll. Well, anyway, this day I was starving. So I walked in about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I said to myself, Sister, you're going to get a job here or else. Well, this guy who owned the place was sitting at the bar having lunch. Well, maybe it was breakfast. Anyway, I started talking. But not about me or the job. About food. This place specialized in all kinds of foreign dishes with fancy names. And somebody tipped me off. This guy was very proud of his chef.
I've eaten there. They do have marvelous food.
Yeah. And the point was I was feeling pretty darn interested in food at the moment. Besides, I know quite a lot about cooking. Always get a kick out of it. So we started exchanging recipes and stuff. Well, the guy turns out to be a pushover. P.S. I not only got the job, but a terrific meal thrown in while we talked.
Certainly makes you feel good when things like that happen.
You're telling me.
But you see, Lily, things like that just naturally happen to you. You know how to get along with people. You're not shy.
You don't know how I feel underneath. Sometimes I'm scared to death of people. Then I just say to myself, Baby, what have they got that you haven't got? Just get in there and pitch.
I wish I could do that.
You're going to be okay. You just got to have a little faith in yourself. And why shouldn't you have? You're good looking. You're a swell dancer.
That's what worries me. I'm not so sure I am a good dancer.
I'm nuts. That's a lot of malarkey. You're terrific if you'd ever let go. Now listen to me. When you go out there tonight, make up your mind that you're going to go over big. That they're going to bring you back for 3 encores.
I can just see that happening.
You'll see it happen if you go at it right.
Lily, I want to tell you, I think you're wonderful. I know you're saying all these things to pep me up, but the trouble is, I know myself too well.
Is that so?
Yes, really. You're such an honest, frank person. I wish you wouldn't try to make me think I'm okay when I'm not. I feel so guilty about Dell.
Guilty? Well, for the love of Mike, what for?
Oh, you know, Lily, if one of the acts isn't good, it gets around awfully fast. Business starts to drop off.
Look, why don't you let Dell worry about that? She knows how to run her business.
Oh, yes, but you see, Dell is just being loyal to Aunt Mary because they're friends.
Sure, they're friends. But that doesn't mean she doesn't know what's cooking in her own place.
Oh, what I mean is, I know Aunt Mary asked Dell to help me, and she's doing her best. But I hate to take advantage of her kindness. I ought to go away.
You're balmy. Why should you do that?
Well, if I just left, went to New York, it wouldn't be Dell's fault. She could tell Aunt Mary I decided to leave, and that would be that.
Honestly, kid, sometimes I'd like to shake you till your teeth rattle. You're such a dope when you talk like that.
Oh, maybe you're right. I guess I am a dope. But I still think that's what I should do. Go somewhere else. Maybe find another partner.
Lily Devon wanted to reply, but she couldn't. It was time for her to go on. But after her act, which as usual got a big hand, she went out in front near the hat check stand to watch Lisa's performance. Doris, the check girl, watched too, leaning on her counter. And after it was over...
Well, somebody clapped. Must be a friend of Dell's getting a free feed, huh? Say, have you seen Dell tonight, Lily?
Yeah. Why?
Oh, nothing, but she was looking real elegant. Had on a black dress with a lot of gold stuff in front. Must have set her back plenty.
Dell always looks good to me.
Yeah, she sure knows how to get herself up so she makes the best of what she's got.
Yeah.
You were swell tonight, Lily.
Thanks.
In fact, the new show's the best we've had for ages. Except for that Fenner babe.
What's wrong with her?
Oh, well, gee, you've been around enough to... Well, she goes through the motions all right, but for my dough, she's no dancer.
What do you mean? Lisa Fenner's a darn good dancer.
You can have her.
When you talk like that, you just show your ignorance. You should see the rave she's gotten. All over.
Yeah? That must have been before.
Before what?
before she got so lousy.
Listen, Doris, I don't like the way you're talking. And Dell wouldn't either if she could hear you. What's the idea of running down the show?
I'm not running down the show. Anyway, I don't have to like it if I don't want to. I'm not a slave here, you know. I guess I can express an opinion.
Well, if you were smart, you'd keep your opinions under your hat, or they won't get you into trouble.
Gosh, I can't open my mouth around here. Last night I had a battle with some character who was all hopped up on this Fenner gal.
Well, sure, you can't go shooting off your mouth to every... Wait a minute. Did you say you talked to some guy last night who was pulling for Lisa?
Yeah. I got all hot and bothered because I said her dancing stinks. Gee, maybe you're right. I better learn to shut up.
You better if you know what's good for you. What kind of guy was he?
Oh, the one who sold on Fenner? I don't know. He had a face.
Don't be funny. What did he look like? What did he say?
What's it to you, anyway?
Never mind about that. Give. I'm interested.
Okay. So what it's got to do with you? Well, he was tall, dark, wavy blue hair, blue eyes, built kind of slender.
Yeah, Go on.
What do you want, a hand-painted picture?
Yeah. Tell me everything that happened.
Oh, I don't know why I stand for this kind of guff.
You do, though. And you're going to keep right on standing for it, sister.
Okay, well, what else do you want to know?
Just tell me what happened. You can skip your opinions. I'll fill those in for myself.
Okay. Well, this lug was standing here watching the show, see? I was griped anyway because he didn't go in and sit down. Pay a cover charge like a real cash customer.
Supposing he didn't. That's not your department.
Maybe it isn't. I was just thinking for the good of the show business.
All right, so you're noble. Go on.
I will if you'll give me a chance. He was watching Fenner dance, and I was just making conversation. All I said was I thought she wasn't any darn good, or words to that effect. Nothing personal, just that her act stinks. Something like that.
Oh, sure. Nothing personal.
Well, anyways, he practically jumped down my throat. Went into a big routine about what a sweet, lovely, beautiful gal she is.
Really? Is that what he said?
Yeah, sure, and a lot more like it. Said she was a terrific dancer, practically the best in the country. And I didn't know what I was talking about, and so forth, and so on.
He wasn't so dumb.
Well, he didn't have to get so nasty about it. Finally, I got sore, and I said, look, mister, if you think the show's so terrific, why be such a piker hanging around here? Why don't you go in and sit down like a decent citizen? That's when he screamed.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, my little half-wit, I hope it taught you a lesson. Just remember, babes like you should be seen and not heard. And mind your own business.
Like you do, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a rule of mine. Only I'll tell you something. Right now, I'm going to break that rule. In a big way.
Lily Devon left then, feeling very elated and hopeful. She was certain the man Doris had mentioned must be Lance Fenner, Lisa's estranged husband. Lily had an idea, an inspiration. If she could just manage to keep Lisa in Chicago. This might be difficult to do, but she was determined to manage it somehow. Now for our story. For the last few evenings, Lily Devon has been staying out front after her performance in the floor show at Del Shipley's nightclub, the Golden Peacock. She was so anxious for Lisa Fenner to make good. Lisa, the shy, lovely young dancer Aunt Mary Lane had entrusted to Del's protection. Tonight, as Lily stood in her favorite vantage point near the hat check stand, she noticed a tall, slender young man with dark, wavy hair and blue eyes. He had been watching Lisa as intently as she had. Lily was certain she knew this young man's identity. He was Lisa's estranged husband, Lance. Lily had recognized him from Lisa's description. Besides, as she stood there, Doris, the hat check girl, gave her a wink to indicate this was the man they discussed the evening before. Now, Lily steps up to him and casually says,
How do you like the new show?
I think it's tops. What about you?
Yeah, it's okay.
You don't sound too sold.
That's just the way I tick. I always say less than I mean.
Oh?
I found out it was a good practice the first time I fell in love.
You sound bitter.
No, not bitter. Just cagey.
I see.
How do you think the new girl compares? Or maybe you haven't seen the shows here before.
Well, as a matter of fact, I haven't. I'm usually working at night myself.
Not a night watchman, I hope.
Oh, no. Why? Don't you like night watchmen?
Oh, they're all right. Except they sleep all day.
Huh? Is that bad?
Well,
Well, it's so hard keeping the children quiet during the day.
Oh, yes. Besides, it throws your meals all out of kilter. Doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
So we got quite a routine here. I think I can book us for 3 solid weeks in Pocatello.
Terrific. Oh, I forgot. I've got a job.
Oh, what a blow. And I thought I had a partner. At last.
You're looking for a partner?
Uh-huh.
Say, I might be able to wangle something for you. How about Lisa Fenner, that gal who just finished dancing? She's a swell little dancer.
I think she's wonderful.
Well, there you are. She thinks you're wonderful, too.
Hey, wait a minute.
Confused?
A little. How do you know what Lisa Fenner thinks of me?
That's easy. In the first place, I know who you are.
You do?
Sure. You're Lance Fenner, and you were married to Lisa once. Not too long ago, either.
Well, I'll be darned. You're not kidding.
You bet I'm not.
Well, I'll be darned.
You just said that.
Yeah, I know. I guess I'm not very bright. But I'm still confused.
Okay. Let's see if I can unconfuse you. To begin with, I knew who you were all along. That's why I started talking to you.
Oh.
Disappointing, isn't it? All the time you thought it was your beautiful blue eyes.
I thought you weren't kidding.
I'm sorry. Well, you see, I work here, too, and I know Lisa quite well.
You do?
Sure. Of course, I know you're not interested, but just for the record, my name's Lily. Lily Devon.
Very glad to meet you. And I mean that.
I'm very glad to meet you, Mr. Fenner. And I mean it, too. Yeah, I work here. And not only that, Lisa's rooming with me at my place on Oak Street.
Well, tell me about Lisa. I've been so worried about her.
I shouldn't wonder. Well, you needn't worry. That is for the moment. Everything's under control right now.
You mean things may not stay under control?
That sort of depends.
On what?
On a lot of things. But I'm coming to that. First, maybe we'd better get something straight. If you don't mind my asking you a personal question.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm not one to stick my neck out in case I'm completely off the beam, but I'm under the general impression that you're pretty crazy about Lisa. Would that be wrong?
No. No, you're not wrong, Lily. In fact, crazy doesn't begin to say it.
Okay, so there ain't any words for it. Is that right?
Yeah. I guess I've been a fool. You see, it's all my fault, and...
No, don't bare your soul to me. That's not part of my job at this point.
No, of course it isn't. You're right. It's something I have to iron out for myself. But I'm afraid that well...
Afraid of what?
Oh, what's the use? Lisa's probably all fed up with me, and I don't blame her either. I acted like a heel.
Yeah, you probably did.
Yeah, it's true. I'd give anything to make up for it. If I had a chance. But I had my chance. There's no reason why she should give me another one.
No reason, except that women are awful dopes when they're in love.
But Lisa's not in love with me.
Yeah? Who told you? Or did you read it in the newspaper?
Well, she couldn't be. Why, I walked out on her.
Yeah, I know. She told me about it.
If she has, I'm surprised you're even civil to me.
Well, come to think of it, I'm a little surprised myself. But I think your conscience has probably punished you enough already.
If you only knew.
Well, I've got a darn good idea. Well, I'm not going to say I don't think you had it coming to you, because you do. But that's not my funeral either. Those were awfully good-looking roses you sent her the other night.
Did she like them?
Yeah. She liked them.
Did she say anything?
Sure, she said a lot of things. Once she got through crying.
Crying?
It seems this guy who sent them to her, this ex-husband of hers, name of Lance Fenner, always did that in the old days when they were happy together. Yellow roses were, well, a sort of routine they had.
Yes, they were.
So naturally, it sort of knocked her for a loop when she got this big bunch of them the other night. Started her to thinking. Remembering.
But she wasn't angry, was she? Angry that I sent them?
No, she wasn't angry.
Well, that's something anyway.
Maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to anyway.
Yes?
Lisa's still in love with you. And I mean in love.
Are you sure of that?
Of course I am.
But I can't believe she still cares about me.
Well, she does, poor kid.
If I'd only known before.
Well, you know now.
I've got to see her. Got to ask her to forgive me.
It's not a bad idea, but I forgot to tell you something.
Oh. I knew it was too good to be true.
Well, it isn't that, but... Well, Lisa's been awfully unhappy, you know, and she's a funny little kid. Full of notions and terribly sensitive.
I know.
So don't expect miracles. You know, you can't barge up to her and say, "Come to my arms, my own true love," the way they do in the movies.
No, I realize that. But at least this gives me something to go on.
But don't get your hopes too high. Remember, Lisa's got an awful lot to forget.
Sure. I know that.
So you'll have to use your head. Go kind of slow.
No, don't worry about that. I can't expect her to come back to me right away, but if you'll just let me show her how I've changed.
And here's another thing you might be up against.
What's that?
She's awfully worried about the act. Her dancing. She thinks she's no good.
Oh, but that's not so. She's a terrific dancer.
Well, she doesn't think so. She's got some crazy idea that she isn't worth a nickel without you.
It's the other way around. I'm not worth anything without her.
Well, if you can make her see that, you're a better man than I am. I've talked myself blue in the face trying to sell her the idea that she's okay.
She was always like that. Sort of shy. Had to be encouraged.
Yeah. You ought to know. After all, it ain't for me to try to explain your own wife to you.
It'd be wonderful to work with her again.
Well, if that's the way you feel, you'd better get going. And fast. Because you might be too late.
Too late?
Yeah. Lisa's got this bee in her bonnet. Oh, some idea that she wants to leave here and go on to New York. So, Mr. Fenner, if you'll take my advice, you'll get on your horse and move.
I will. And I want to tell you, I think it's swell of you to tell me all this.
Ah, nuts. Don't thank me. I happen to like the gal a lot. I want her to be happy. So if she thinks you're nice people, that's good enough for me.
Lily Devon wrote the address of her Oak Street apartment on the back of a frayed envelope she had in her bag, handed it to Lance with an encouraging smile, and went back to her dressing room. She was feeling very encouraged. It may not be so simple, Lily, since Lisa believes that she's wronged Lance. But on the other hand, perhaps when she sees him, Lisa will break down, confess what she's done, and Lance may understand and forgive her.